Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Jack.
Welcome back to Pipcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Today I'm joined by Em and Georgia, and today we're going to chat about burnout.
Yeah, big one.
It is a big one, isn't it? We thought that it would be an interesting topic to explore, and these girls put their hands up to be part of this episode.
Yeah.
So,
Don't know what that says about us.
I know. I'm really interested about burnout because I think like it goes hand in hand with OT
it
and
really
with
does.
the healthcare profession in general.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting to be really vigilant of and aware about and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I put my hand up because I was interested.
And I'm going to go with that answer too.
We will maybe touch on some lived experience. We'll get there.
That's a good idea. When we're talking about defining burnout, we were talking about this a little bit before because I think, you know, we can classify burnout as almost a bit of a tipping point, like the end of a scale or a bit of an on or off switch. But we were saying that really it feels a little bit more of a slippery slope than that, more of a scale where you're sort of trending towards burnout than experiencing that really high level chronic physiological response to ongoing stress in a workplace that feels unmanageable. How do you guys think about I guess defining burnout in your mind?
For me, I guess, and I agree, it really is a bit more of, it's not that on and off thing. You're either burnt out or you're not. It can be that progressive slope.
Yeah.
For me, I think of it more about, I could have the same amount of tasks or the hours needed at work or things in one given week and feel like I'm on top of that and I can manage that and I've got the skills to do what I need to do. But if that's something that's really ongoing for a long period of time or other things are going on in my personal life or things that kind of impact that ability to meet those demands, that's when I start to notice that actually I can't keep up. Yeah.
I think I'm very similar to you in that it's like taking a snapshot of the whole picture of like where am I actually at in that moment in time, in that month, in that week, in that term.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can kind of roll with the punches and sometimes the punches like just really hit, you know?
And sometimes, but sometimes it does feel really exciting though at the start when, you know, maybe you do
a big undertaking on the horizon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like there's something new and it's exciting and you've got more hours that you need to do or more stuff on your plate. But at the start it feels really good and it's exciting. But the longer that goes on, sometimes it feels less exciting. And that's when I feel like the scales start to tip.
Yeah. It's like what we talk about with kids, isn't it? Where our skills outweigh the demands or vice versa.
Yeah, totally.
And our skills can fluctuate as well, like what you were saying before. I think that we also were talking about, I guess, nerding out on potentially the stuff that we teach families and the way we view the families we support through like a PEO lens, that it's useful sometimes to apply that to ourselves and look at, is it the environment, is it our personal capacity at any given time, or is it the demand? And I guess that can look very different at different times because our participation's kind of in the middle based on all of those factors, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can think of particular times when, you know, moving house, I think, is a great example.
As someone who moved this year and you moved it late last year, we're both like,
Yep. Whereas, like, there might have actually been nothing in my calendar that changed for a given period, but did everything feel a whole lot harder at work? Absolutely, because I was exhausted, I was tired, there's all this other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And, like, there's definitely, and we'll get into it, like that huge factor to do with your workplace, your workload, all of that really specific stuff. But I do think, at least for me, when I think about burnout, the whole big picture is so important to consider.
Yeah.
We were talking about how the role of a workplace can actually be, I guess, something that fuels burnout or can buffer it in some ways. How do you see workplace fueling burnout and really what kinds of factors in the workplace could really just steamroll you into that kind of headspace or that phase of being?
Yeah. I think there are some really like cut and clear like KPIs and caseloads and collaboration with management and those kinds of things. And
Yeah.
if those expectations are not set at an achievable level for you
Yep.
for whatever reason, maybe like be it your grade, be it the people who are in your caseload, be it the hours in a week, like those sorts of things can be a real potential problem if you're being expected to see too many people in a day or in a week, or you're not being allocated time to write your reports, or there's a bit of a culture to make things up on the weekend or after hours or sign on a bit early just to make up this one thing. Or
And sometimes like people can do that for short periods of time, and sometimes if you're new to an environment and people are doing that, you think that you're the problem.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that can be really dangerous sometimes, because, you know, you see everyone else doing those things and you think that's normal, or you don't know they're doing those things and it's not spoken about.
Yeah.
So
Like,
how is
everybody's
everyone
kind of
else getting all of this
overperforming.
done?
Yeah. And so I'm the only one that's doing this outside of work. So it must be a me thing because it's not made transparent and it's not spoken about.
Yeah.
And it's only really when you notice that there's, you know, really poor retention or people are leaving regularly, and there's nothing worse or nothing more, I guess, that makes me sad about our industry sometimes as that being normalised, or people leaving the workforce or leaving OT as a whole.
Yeah.
Because they think that that is the norm, and it's bad enough
that's
if they're
required.
Yes, yeah, and that is what it's going to take, or that I guess what's worse than that is when you think you're the problem and you're just not cut out for it.
Yeah, I think that's a really
sad.
good point around, you know, if you also don't know that that's what other people are doing, and then you're thinking as well, why am I not, you know, able to keep up the kind of emotional toll that has as well?
Yeah.
That's really tough.
Yeah, we speak about that a lot as a team, I think, like on our planning days, talking about how actually recording how long a report is taking you and being honest about it, because I think people, especially in our role, I think that OTs, working with people, we also love to just do a good job. Like we're just a workforce of wanting to excel, I think.
Completely.
And that comes with it. That comes with a lot of pros. But I think when you are constantly wanting to think that you should be better for whatever reason, you tend to undersell that. And we're not doing our team or our colleagues any favours by saying, oh no, it only took me an hour and a half, when really it's consistently taking 2.
Yeah.
And we always say that if it's taking you that long, chances are it actually is taking the majority of the rest of the team that long as well, and really normalising those discussions and not making it an individual issue. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And then if there's a gap, like, are you getting support and recognition for the fact, oh, if that's taking you longer, do you need some help with it? Should it be a supervision goal?
Yeah.
Compared to it's taking you longer, get faster.
Yeah, not necessarily making it a performance management issue.
No, but
I think
just like
normalising
a bit of
skill development,
an awareness, a tracker of yourself and your time and everything like that.
Yep, that's right. And I think the sooner we can accept that none of us are perfect, honestly, the better we would all be for it. I think that there's some people that just are never going to be stellar report writers, but they're really good at super efficient planning, or, you know, there's always going to be things that you are better at than others. And that doesn't mean you can't work on those things, but we teach this for kids. Humans are made up of strengths and challenges. There's always, there's no perfect person. So I think by giving ourselves a red hot break from, you know, thinking that if I am working on something, or I'm, I guess, you know, learning to actually progress in something, that it's not admitting failure or fault. It's okay to just want to have a goal and chip away at it, because that means something to you.
Yeah. It's that like common humanity, I feel like. I mean, I had this conversation with Gabs the other day, and without going into too many details, there's this particular thing that I was finding really, really hard. And I turned to him in the office and I said, hey, like, I'm really struggling with this. Like, is this a me thing? And he was like, oh my gosh, no, like I've had all these conversations in supervision about this and blah, 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 and able to kind of relate it back to his experiences and some other experiences that he felt other people would relate to on the team.
Yeah.
And actually even just having that conversation really did lift a weight off my shoulders, to be like, wow, okay, firstly, I'm not alone in this. Secondly, it gave me the idea maybe I do need to take this to supervision, because otherwise I'm absorbing this and not getting any help. Like, it's okay to need some help with this.
Yeah.
It's the power of vulnerability, isn't
That's
it?
it.
It's
I
like
think-
being true to yourself and I guess leaning on others. And I think that flows into some of the other protective things with workplace. I guess elements which are the external part to you is really looking at, do you feel comfortable and safe bringing those vulnerabilities to a place that can actually support you through it?
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. If I didn't feel that I had a trusting relationship with Gabs, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And he didn't have trusting relationships with the team. He wouldn't have been able to draw on his experience. So I guess that example is really specific to having that kind of a workplace,
Yeah.
which I know not everyone listening maybe will feel that they do have.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a good question. Like, for people that are potentially facing burnout and don't feel that they have the support where they are, what would you suggest that, like, where do people find that barometer or that radar to flesh that out?
Like, what should I be looking for kind of
Yeah.
thing? Oh, gosh.
I think we probably made a couple of good points on an episode a couple of weeks ago about what new grads should look out for.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, good one.
And I think, I'm sure you've all listened already, but I think it's really interesting to consider things like, where am I getting peers, like input from peers who do not work in my workplace?
Yeah.
Do you have some friends from uni or people that you've met in the industry, people that you've met at a conference or a PD that you can have? Obviously, it's not the same level of vulnerability or proximity perhaps, but where you can kind of get an informed perspective that's kind of outside of the fish tank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
a really good point.
they're not in your tank,
Yep.
but they're still like in the
They
aquarium. I don't know
understand.
what the analogy, but like I kind of lost it.
There's something there.
I started and then I lost it.
That needs to be a reel.
But it's important to think about, like, where am I getting an array of different perspectives perhaps. I think that's one way to consider it, particularly if you're not feeling like you maybe have the person inside of your workplace that you've got that relationship with. But I also think a really big chat that you and I have had before, Jack, is like, you can't force proximity and you can't force relationship.
No.
You have to like make concerted efforts to make that happen. Like, I know we were having a conversation about your role shifting and me being like more junior in the team.
Yeah.
And you're obviously the director, like you've got a big job and you're not carrying as much of a clinical caseload anymore. And I was like, oh, like we don't have those incidental, like, oh, my kid said this and your kid said that. So we need to like set aside the time to go and have a coffee together to build a relationship, so that when I'm like, oh, but also this thing about work,
Yes.
it's not like that far of a leap between you and I, because it's we've spent energy fostering a relationship between
it
each
has to be
other.
more intentional, doesn't it?
That's it. That's it. And maybe it's and it depends on the workplace that you're in and the culture of the workplace that you're in. But I would really encourage people to spend the time when they've got the bandwidth as well, when we're outside of that burnout window, when we're like, let's make sure that I have, I'm making efforts to have a relationship with these people that I'm working with, so that when I need them, I can lean on them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess my only other thought would be, if anyone listening really does feel like, actually, I don't feel like I have a supportive workplace, and I, even as much as I can, try and foster some of those relationships, the KPIs and the expectations and everything is just not feeling supportive, but I'm not sure. Reaching out to like external supervision could even be something worth
that's a great
mentioning
point.
to get a bit of a barometer for what's normal, or what's maybe not.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I think it's also coming back to that, like your circle of control. And I think a lot of people really want to feel like they are doing everything within their circle of control to actually build their capacity for managing workplace stress and managing demands, and really feeling like you can nail different tricky things as they come up. What kinds of skills within your circle of control do you think either that you have worked on successfully or are TBC? What is that list of things that you think really help to be a protective factor for burnout?
I am currently working close with Tiff on my calendar management and my timetable management. That is a
Real practical
huge
one.
challenge area for me. And to be honest, I've basically neglected it until the last 6 months because I've just been able to make it.
It's just worked.
Yeah, it's worked well enough. But now with things that are more dynamic, I'm coming up with some roadblocks, and actually sitting down with someone who has that type of brain has been so instrumental for me, because I can't see without in the way that she does. So sitting down.
She's a whiz at that.
She's fantastic. Yeah. So that's been for me, who doesn't have that practical chip in my brain.
Yeah.
So helpful.
Yeah, and recognizing that and embracing that, I think, is really cool, which I think is another protective factor, is that reflective practice and that ability to have the self-awareness to break it down to that level. What about you, Georgia? What are some other protective factors to skill build?
I think I've started to use my supervision time for more broad personal development skills.
Yeah, cool.
As opposed to just like clinical question.
Yeah.
You know, I've been talking with my supervisor a lot about why am I feeling so stressed out about writing my notes?
Yeah.
And what are tactics that people are using? And I got offered like a completely different perspective on writing notes, and it's like pre-fill all the stuff that you know you're going to talk about in that planning time, and then add it and shift it as the session changes. And it's like, oh, so I don't have to sit there and remember every single word, because I know what I was going to say and I said that already. And I like, so that's like a specific tool that I've started to develop. But I think that's one example of more management and development skills that I'm trying to utilize my supervision to develop, because that time is there and it's protected and it's for me, and it's okay if I don't get to that. What do I do with this kid this one time? If I have the ability to write my notes a bit more comfortably, I'll have the time in my week to find out an answer about what to do with that one kid.
Yeah, zooming out. I think
it.
It's kind of zooming out. It's like more, and I think that speaks to both of your, you know, experience now in the role, and, you know, it's normal in those early stages to kind of be a bit more reactive and zoomed in on specific clients, because those are stressful. And then as you sort of develop those skills, you do start to look more at your, you know, overarching soft skills, or you start to think about, oh, well, if this actually shifted, everything would feel easier.
Yeah.
So I think that really feeds into, your growing reflective skills, and I think that's a credit to your supervisors. We should give them a shout
Katie and
out.
Danny.
No, it's a credit to it. Also,
every supervisor's like, I feel like the whole team really develops that though. Like we're really fortunate that we set our goals based on like all of those skills, encapsulating all of those things.
Yeah, I think that comes down to
I guess that's a
effective
protective factor
supervision.
too.
Yeah. I think finding a supervisor that really knows how to supervise well. And we'll give a quick shout out to Michelle Bahari, because she does a lot of really good work in the supervision space. And I know that the supervisors and supervisees who have done any of her training have really come away learning heaps, and really being able to invest in those reflective skills and zooming out and really starting to think about where do my goals actually sit and what can I work on. And I think that keeps you interested in your work too. And we were talking about burnout could also sometimes look, maybe burnout isn't the best description for it, but that where you just become really demotivated with work. And I think that can lead to that feeling of helplessness in the workplace, and just feeling like, that you're just
switched off.
You're just switched off, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I think that can also impact our clients, but yourself as well, because you just kind of are ready to check out. So I think supervision can really help in both ways for in that situation, finding a bit more purpose, or managing extreme stress.
Yeah, when you do actually need it, and you can't zoom out, having supports there with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Being able to say no, I know Tony Knight does a lot of work on that too. And I think that's something, those assertiveness skills that we can learn, that we need to develop in our work with families as well, is that really being able to communicate clearly and express our needs clearly, I think that that's something that's a real protective factor as well when it comes to preventing burnout, and being able to speak your truth and say what you need, I think is really important.
And I think that goes in two boxes. That goes into your employer or your manager or your, admin team, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
But also to families.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of uphold the boundaries that are realistic for your role and for your scope and for your literal capacity. Like if you I know we have like it's a 4 weeks for a report kind of policy, and they're like, no, but I really need this. It's really easy to fall into the like bleeding heart, like, well, if I just kind of squeeze it in, I'll be really, really overpacked.
Yeah.
But then you'll get your report sooner and you're so stressed about it because you're so worried about this thing. And it's like, no, 4 weeks is the policy.
Yeah.
I'm protected by the policy. I find massive protection in the policies and like being like, it's a rule.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a rule.
Yeah.
I'm kind of leaning back on those things. But
that's something I've had to really think about as a business owner. And I know I'm doing another episode on
that whole journey.
So I will try not to ruin any
spoilers.
any deep insights that I might have that I'm yet to discover. But I think something that's really important there is that the workforce is what benefits the clients. So I've really had to learn that, yes, my work I'm an OT first. I've always said that. I love my work and I love the impact we can make for families. But my team is what allows that to happen, and they need to feel valued in the workplace. They need to feel equipped in the workplace, and they need to feel supported. And that means looking after their needs first, and that will flow down to the families. And sometimes that can feel crap because we are disappointing families and we're not going to please everyone. But by being consistent and fair and having things in place that really back your therapists in, I think the longevity is better. And it allows you to really make bigger impacts for families in the long term because the therapist is actually skilled and confident and able to feel like they can handle those day-to-day stresses and the demands that come up in the work we do, which is hard work.
And I feel like it's something as well, like similar to the shift, Jack, with you from being, again, not to give too many spoilers, but from, sole trader all the way through to having a small team to having a larger team now. I feel like there's probably a bit of a similar journey, even just from like new grad to more experienced OT.
Yeah.
And George, using your example before of when you've got families coming to you and asking for reports or to liaise with their care team or to go see them at school, I personally think, as a new grad myself, those were things that I probably jumped on a lot quicker because I had the time built into my week to take those opportunities to learn more, to dip my toes in and do all of those things. And then I think as, you go on to progress and you've got more responsibilities and that, and you see your timetable filling up in a different way, your schedule looks different and your weeks look different, and learning to be able to actually say no, but get back to it and know that, I can do your report or your school visit, but there's a process we've got to follow, or we can prioritize that over your next session, and having those kind of communication skills. That's something that I think is really advantageous also in how you communicate that to clients too.
We don't go into OT thinking that we're going to be having so many mini conflicts, because that's what they are, aren't they?
I was sitting there like, it's kind of problem solving, right?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so many tricky skills that we have to use in terms of conflict resolution, assertiveness, and explaining ourselves clearly and holding boundaries. And then when that goes to crap, which it does sometimes, because that's the nature of people and people under stress as well. Our families are often dealing with a lot of hard situations as well. So having that self-compassion in our workforce is extremely important. I think we're going to do an episode on self-compassion at some point.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's a good
because
idea.
it's so key. And I know a lot of people on the team have really done a lot of work on self-compassion specifically, because OTs tend to be a compassionate bunch, and I think we're prone to burnout because of that. We go into the field because we're aligned with the work and we love working with people, but we can also be prone to taking it all on, and that can be a real challenge.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think of like, of particular note, are those, because you could write a story about any of your clients and
Yeah.
they're all just gorgeous and they all just want everything and they all just deserve everything and you just want to help them as much as you can. There will be those clients whose story you're more vulnerable to taking on in an emotional way. Maybe you have your own kind of history and backstory that kind of makes that hearing those things like more tricky to cope with and stuff as well. I think it's really important when you're identifying, you're starting to show those signs of burnout and being like, no, I know that this client in particular is going to stir some things up in me, or they might have, you know, whatever the way that they communicate with you is not in line with how you like to be communicated with when you're feeling more vulnerable. Maybe to put that really like tactfully.
In person or via email. Like, We've all had a cry over either.
That's it. And it's like, no, they're just having a hard time. But it's like, no, maybe I'm just having a hard time.
Yeah, that's right. It's easy to forget. I think people in professional roles are people too. Yes. And I think that's hard for us as well when we're such big feelers sometimes and we're really empathizing with the family and we get treated like we're not people sometimes. Yeah. That can be really hard as well to manage that and be like, I'm finding this as tricky as you are. But it's, everyone's on their own journey, isn't it? And it's like,
it's hard.
It's a very hard thing.
Yeah.
So what are some practical things, I suppose, workplace factors for those that are working on their own or those in teams that are willing to have a chat about what could change that are really practical to prevent burnout? What would those things look like for you guys?
For me, I cannot have emails on my phone. And I also can't have my Slack I can access my Slack, but I have to go in through the App Store and search it up and then go into it that way, because otherwise I just know my impulse control. I see a notification, I'm either going to check it or I'll leave it, but I'll be thinking about it for the next couple hours. And I can't have that outside of work.
Yep.
So for me, that's a real practical thing that I've put in place.
Yeah.
I was similar to you. I had like my emails, I had my Slack, I had it all on my phone. I was like, what if I'm just not away? I'm at work, I'm in the clinic, but I'm away from my laptop and my client emails me and says, I can't find the Zoom link. Like I was finding, I was like, oh, well, if I turn it off, I'm not going to be able to access that. I just like a happy medium that I've found is I just turn off the notification so it doesn't give me a pop-up or anything like that. I have to go and seek it out
that's
to be able to
what I
access
do
that
as well.
information. Because if it's sitting there pinging, I've also like my Slack is set to my work hours. So it will notify me during the day, because if admin's like, oh, someone's running 5 minutes late, I'd like to see that during the work day. But the notifications cap off at my shift hours. Which is like, it works perfectly for me. It's like a medium where some people are like, no, and particularly I think like sole traders or people in the community or on the road, like where you're not, you know, able to just walk out of the office and talk to your admin team. It's not practical for you to not have anything on your phone. Yeah. But like finding that medium of like, can you set your notifications to turn off when you're meant to be turning off, and those kinds of things can be helpful.
Yeah. Utilizing auto replies. I like that. That's a really practical thing, just to actually use systems available to you to physically switch off. Yes. Even if you're still thinking a little bit about work, you don't need those extra notifications and things when you're meant to be away from your desk or away from work.
Something else I've started doing as a strategy to not take my to-do list home with me is spend 5 minutes before I leave at the end of the day writing all of those little bits and pieces that popped up in my mind across the day that I do need to follow up tomorrow morning, or send off that sensory profile link, or remember to add that person's contact, or whatever those like little odd jobs. I will spend 5 minutes at the end of my workday to write the list so that the list can hold on to it for me.
Bit of a brain dump.
That's it.
I like
That's it. And I'm not, I don't have to hold on to that. I don't have to be like, oh, I meant to do that thing. That's been working really well for me recently. I've only started doing that lately, and it's helping a lot.
It's a really good one.
I like it. This one might sound really silly, but I'm going to say it.
It's not silly. I already know. It's just not going to be silly.
Never. So I don't technically need glasses to see, but I need them if I'm looking at my screen for a long time. So I've gotten in the habit now of putting my glasses on when I come to work, because I know I'm going to be looking at the computer and technically I should be wearing them. Leave work, take them off, done. It's an environmental cue for me. I don't know if it works or not. But
wearing the glasses you actually need. Wow, maybe that is
so OT. And that is the most OT thing.
I don't need them, but if I'm going to be...
Well, you do need them. But
Okay, don't tell my optometrist.
No, this is a beautiful example of that, like, environmental, like, I'm in and I'm locked in and I'm on.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes we have, like,
It's like a physical cue almost.
is,
I
it
do
is,
love
it
that.
is.
it is. It's like, yeah.
If you really do need glasses, though, please wear them outside of work.
Little PSA there. We can't have the optometrist of the world coming after us.
Just wear your glasses when you feel like it. It's fine.
Don't want to read that email. I'm going to take them
No,
off.
that's a good point. In a similar vein, like taking your lunch break in the lunchroom and not bringing your
Yes.
laptop in.
Oh, actually just taking a break.
Yeah,
Can we-
full stop.
Yeah. Starting on time, taking your breaks, finishing on time. And if you physically can't do those things, I think zooming
Talk
out.
to your manager and get some help.
Yeah, that's right.
That's like kind of not acceptable.
Yeah, and having quality supervision and having a supervisor that is not necessarily, or seeking supervision with someone who's not necessarily your line manager or somebody direct to that. I know that that's a really good place to start, because then you can actually pick apart why that's happening, and there might be some skill development things that you could work on that would help, but there might just be some things where your workload actually isn't feasible for where you're at. So I actually really like that idea about starting with just your work hours and breaks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And can you
And
maintain
it sounds
them?
so like it sounds so like front of the line, but it's literally like if you're in burnout, you're working through your lunch, you're
Yeah.
like feeling like I have to use every second of every day to get these things done because the list is so long, and it's like the list gets shorter if you can actually engage in the activities. You can't write a report if you haven't gotten away from your laptop in 6 hours.
Yep.
Or you can, and it's not going to be very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely times where you just, and for me, like I run a business and I can honestly say I have pretty good work-life balance, but there are times where I choose to get ahead of the game, or I spend an hour here or there outside
Yeah.
of work. But I can honestly say that's the exception, not the rule. So I think sometimes people do it out of choice or out of necessity because you've got something you want to deliver for whatever reason. But it should be a choice.
A bit like, yeah.
And it shouldn't feel like it's cooking you.
Yeah.
Like I think it should feel like it's a means to an end, or it's something that you can cope with, and that you've gone into it really intentional, knowing that that's what you're doing for a short
it's a
period
short
of
term.
time.
Yeah.
Also that it all comes out in the wash. Like if you're finding it's not coming out in the wash and you're not getting that time somewhere else, or having, 1 week where maybe I will take 2 coffee walks that 1 week because I've got a bit more breathing room, and this other week I'm going to like lock in and hustle because I've got this thing that I've got motivation to get done.
That's called flexibility.
That's it. That's it.
Flexibility is nice. I would say flexibility is a protective factor for burnout.
Yeah.
But flexibility where you're like over operating all the time, that's not
No,
actually
it needs to
flexibility,
go
is it?
both ways is what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Flexibility is in like, do I or don't I use this Saturday to catch up on work? That is counter. That's a really good point. I love that.
Yeah. And I think kind of similarly, George, with what you were saying with starting and finishing on time, something I've got in the habit of is actually blocking out my Friday and also my time in between my morning, my afternoon blocks of clients of what I'm actually doing, because it tends to either go one of two ways, and it gets to a Friday, which is our client free day, and I've got time on my hands. I can put my hand up to help with something or to proofread some reports or whatever. Or I get to Thursday afternoon and I go, oh my gosh, I've got 12 of my 8 hours allocated. I need to do something about this.
Yeah.
And actually being able to physically see that so that it doesn't get to 3 p.m. and I'm going, what am I going to do? This is all my fault.
Yeah.
I'm the worst.
I love that.
Difficulties should also change over time. If it's the same thing that's causing huge amounts of stress over a long period of time, that's also a sign that something isn't right. And I think totally unrelated, but when I had a baby, someone told me that do what works for you until it doesn't anymore. And then when it doesn't, just change it. I think that's really good advice in life.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. It sounds really basic, doesn't it? But I think that's the same with dealing with stress in the workplace. Like if it's working for you, great. When something doesn't feel like it's working, change it up, get support, ask someone different. Don't just, dig in deep and keep trudging through the mud, because it's not helpful. I think really just make that choice to zoom out, chat to someone, explore what's going on, and set some tangible goals, whether that's going to be to change the environment or change your skills or change the supports around you. Something's got to give. So I think that's something that, I really take into life and probably the workplace now.
Yeah, and that's probably something you could apply all the way from like a small problem with continuing to have challenge with this therapy area all the way up to actually structurally, I don't know if my manager's expectations are realistic.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on Pivcast, Em and Georgia. This has been a really fun episode.
Yeah, it's
I've liked
been
talking
good.
about it. I feel like we could keep going.
I know.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Like the list is long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll add some links to the people that we mentioned if you're interested in getting some extra support or chatting to some more people that are far more gurus in this area than us. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.